Good evening to all of you. You're watching Lok Sabha TV. I'm Anurag Punetha with you. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in India. I mean, this is much awaited spectacle of meeting of the two leaders of the two most populous nation on the earth. And this was awaited. And this meeting is happening at the time when the relation between the two nations were not good in recent times, especially when India decided to abrogate Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. China reacted negatively, and we all know that how Chinese foreign minister supported Pakistan at United National General Assembly elections. But as the indications are coming, as the two sides are reciprocating and conciliatory notes are coming from China and New Delhi, both the nations wants to take relation further. And in fact, China has said that what happened at the Wuhan summit last year in April, the spirit of the Wuhan summit should go further, and that is the reason that the both leaders are meeting in Tamil Nadu's Mamallapuram, which is a historic town in terms of the historicity between the two nations are concerned, to discuss furthermore that how things can go further as far as India and China relations are concerned. And when India looks normally the relation through the prism of the Pakistan as well, we are going to discuss all these things in this edition of Public Forum with a couple of the guests from international community. And joining me for the discussion, Professor Momin Chen from Taiwan. Professor Chen is a director of the Center for Studies on South Asia and the Middle East. He is from National Ching Sang University, Taiwan. Very warm welcome to the show, Professor Momin. My first question, that how do you see the relations? Because the kind of optics that are being shown by the two nations, China and India, and the kind of conciliatory notes that are coming from, especially from China. How do you see the relations going forward? Because both the nations are talking to take the spirit of the Wuhan summit further. How hopeful you are?
I see. Okay. Well, we know that Xi Jinping now he is already been serving as the Chinese president for 6 years, and Indian Prime Minister Modi also win his second term. And they met a few times. Last time was in Wuhan last year. I think this is the time that both leaders try to stabilize the relationship, because India and China they have problems, border issues, Kashmir, Tibet. All these problems cannot be solved in such a short time. It has been there for a long time. But both sides also have expectations in terms of the trade, in terms of the regional security, and in terms of cooperating in other global or regional issues. So I think that this summit or Xi Jinping's visit, we cannot see that it's an opportunity for India and China to solve all major problems in the past, but it will be the opportunity for both sides to stabilize the relations in the next few years, and they want to be friends on certain issues, but also be clear with each other on the positions of both sides.
Okay, but what are the reasons that the two nations are talking positively at the moment, especially almost a month ago when the things were not that good, especially at the UNGA, how the things happened there, especially the Chinese behaved and India behaved and India countered. So what changed within a month, according to you?
Well, I don't see any change, because I think this visit by Xi Jinping to India has been planned for a long time. Several months ago, it has been decided he will visit in October. And for any Chinese leader, no matter Xi Jinping or Hu Jintao or whoever who visit a foreign country, and Chinese government and Chinese media always try to create an atmosphere that this is a friendly environment, and leaders were talking about things positively. So they will not to really talk about the conflicts, disputes, and of course, there will be differences on many issues, including Kashmir, but they will be not on the table. They will probably discuss this under the table. So I would say that media or the public occasion, we will not see, the real dispute between both leaders.
Okay, okay. Professor Chen, I would appreciate you if you stay with us for a few more minutes, because one more guest, Mr. Michael Kugelman, that he is a Deputy Director and Senior Associate for the South Asia Program Wilson Center from Washington, has joined me over the Skype as well. Very warm welcome on the show, Michael Kugelman. Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is here in India, and both the nations are talking to take the relations further, and the spirit of the Wuhan summit that happened last year further. How hopeful you are? And because we normally see the relations between India and China through the prism of Pakistan, and in fact what happened between Pakistan and China recently are not that good. In fact, Prime Minister of Pakistan went to China. In fact, China told Pakistani establishment to somehow solve the Kashmir issue bilaterally on the agreement of the what happened normally happens between India and Pakistan. So this is being termed as a jolt to Pakistan. How hopeful you are? Is there any strain on China-Pakistan relations or not, in your understanding?
Well, I think we all know that the Chinese and the Pakistanis have a long and deep relationship, though, I would argue that Pakistan has always valued the relationship with China more than China does with Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan is a country that, badly seeks relationships with significant and influential powers, and it has those with the likes of China and also with the United States, for that matter. I would argue that the relationship between China and Pakistan at this point remains quite strong. I do think that there have been some very interesting developments with the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which was meant to bring these two countries closer together. However, there has been rising concern in Islamabad about the viability of CPEC, just because of the financial implications and the debt burden that Pakistan has taken on through this huge infrastructure project. And it's almost like the project has lost some momentum. That could have some implications for the broader relationship, though I would argue that at the end of the day, the China-Pakistan relationship is quite strong, and in fact, the revocation of Article 370 may have strengthened that relationship further, just because China has opposed that move just as Pakistan has.
Okay, okay. I would come again to Professor Chen Momin as well. Professor Chen, there have been suggestions. In fact, the Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Luo also said that meeting that will take place in Chennai will set the tone for the next stage of development for China-India relation. And he somehow suggests that it is hoped that India, for its part, would do its best to steer bilateral trade towards enabling. In fact, there are suggestions that India should take part in BRI project. India should also come forward to somehow make Asia great again. That are the kind of suggestions that are coming from China.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I would say that this will be a great opportunity for India by talking and meeting with Xi Jinping and Chinese officials, to see China's real intention in South Asia. Because we know that China is expanding in the entire South Asian region and also Indo-Pacific. But what's China's ultimate strategic goal over there? And how does China want to see India's role in this region? And what does China want India to do in the BRI projects? I think this is very important for India to figure out by talking to Xi and try to find out what China is really want over there, particularly in the military, strategic, and other, the regional investment issues. I think a very, very important chance for India to figure out what China really want over there.
Okay, but before I go to the Michael, I have one more question to Professor Chang. Because CPEC project, there are some reports that CPEC project is slowing down, and in fact China is losing that interest. And why there is a slowdown in your understanding? Does it indicate that the China has realized, or realizing probably, that the putting such huge money into Pakistan, into the Balochistan, is not a sound idea?
Well, I would say that China now is not just only working with Pakistan on the CPEC. They're also expanding their influence through Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Malaysia, and other countries. So I think China is trying different channels to penetrate into the Indian Ocean. And CPEC and their cooperation with Pakistan is only one of those channels they are building up, so that China does has a grand strategy to dominate the Indian Ocean, and the CPEC is only part of it.
Okay,
that's my view.
Okay. The same question I would be asking to Michael Kugelman. Michael, what's your understanding about this? I mean, are there some strains on the Pakistan-China relation? Because there are growing voices within the China that keeping the relations with the Pakistan and supporting Pakistan internationally somehow dent the image of the China internationally as well. And somehow that might be the reason that China is not that interested now to put money into the CPEC project. And that is the kind of the thing that is happening. And probably China is slowing down the process of the entire CPEC thing.
No, I don't think that the slowdown in momentum in CPEC is related to the Article 370 repeal, just because we've been seeing these concerns about CPEC for a period of time well before India made its Article 370 move. I think that there are a lot of factors at play. One, as I mentioned before, is Pakistan's concern about the financial implications of taking on so much debt at a time when Pakistan already faces a very serious balance of payments crisis. But I do think that China increasingly worries about the viability of the project itself. I think that it worries about the implications of assuming that Pakistan could take on so much debt when it's not in a position to pay it back. But all this said, what I'm talking about here, these concerns in both countries, China and Pakistan, about the viability of CPEC, these concerns are not articulated publicly, and I think that puts the two countries in an awkward position because it's an important project for both countries, and I think if you were to have either capital start to publicly voice hesitation, reluctance about taking this project forward, that would be a really big deal. And it's actually quite noticeable the few times when you have had a Pakistani senior official go on the record and talk about the need to sort of slow things down and things like that. You hear Islamabad take back, sort of walk back those words very quickly. So it's a very delicate matter. There are problems behind the scenes with the project, but the messaging from both Islamabad and Beijing remains very strong, very emphatic, very positive. And I do think the project still is there. It's going to go forward, though I do think that Islamabad may try to slow things down. Quickly, one more factor here: the IMF. Pakistan has a new bailout package from the IMF, and there's reason to believe that the IMF package has stipulated that Pakistan be careful not to use IMF funding to pay back CPEC loans, and so that could give Pakistan pause as well.
Okay, fair enough. Professor Momin Shein, despite some what you call deep-rooted suspicion as far as the China-India relations are concerned, how the relations can go further, because there are suggestions from the China that India should begin to tune its mindset for the Beijing-enabled success. In fact, there are some suggestions that why India cannot take lessons of the Make in India initiative, which was started 5 years earlier by the same government, Narendra Modi government, with much fanfare. So why are manufacturers still showing little enthusiasm for India? In fact, there have been reports from Japanese firm that out of 56 firms that moved their production out of China between April 2018 to August 2019, only 3 went to India, and most of the companies went to Vietnam. So India should take the lessons from the Beijing-enabled success. Can this somehow bridge the gap between the two nations? What's your understanding?
Well, I would say that now more and more companies are pulling out from China, and they do try to find a better investment place in South Asia and Southeast Asia. But right now, I think India should try to do more to attract foreign business to go to India. And countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, they right now their infrastructure, their investment environment, I should say that they are still a little bit better than India. And Indian government should do more. And I think that India has a full potential to attract more foreign investments. So in terms of economic development, this is indeed a great opportunity for India.
Okay. So finally, I mean, so there are much, we can say that we should be hopeful, and the relation between the two nations are now becoming more transactional. And in fact, when the two nations are saying that some peevish issues, I mean, some irritants that normally cause the tension between the two nations can be put aside and can be settled a little later.
Yes, but I would also say that this is also a great opportunity for India to see China's real intention. And particularly in the recent months, you see that China are facing a lot of challenges in Hong Kong, US-China trade war, things like that. And by I think Prime Minister Modi, by talking and meeting with President Xi, will try to understand what China and Xi Jinping is thinking right now. Does he feel uncomfortable? And does he also need some help from India? Try to figure it out. This is a great opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Chen Momin,
Sure.
For talking to me. Professor Chen Momin, Director, Center for Studies for South Asia and Middle East. He is from National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. So much awaited spectacle is being taken place at the moment. Two leaders of the two most populous nations on the earth have come to meet. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Chennai to a grand welcome. This is the second informal summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping to welcome Chinese President in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Mr. Palaniswamy, Governor Banwari Lal Purohit and Speaker of the Tamil Nadu Assembly was there at the airport, and the venue of the summit is the ancient coastal town of the Mamallapuram, which is approximately 50 kilometers away from Tamil Nadu capital Chennai, and this venue is quite significant as it has a strong trade and cultural links with China's Fujian province, and she is also accompanied by the Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Chinese State Council Yang Jiechi. Both are scheduled to hold separate talks with their Indian counterparts like S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Mr. Ajit Doval. So large number of artists also lined up at the airports to welcome Xi Jinping. One more guest, Namrata Hasija, Senior Research Associate, CCAS, has joined me from Taipei. Very warm welcome to the show, Namrata. We talked earlier when Xi Jinping was yet to arrive, and we were talking about that there is a kind of a shift in attitude when we talk about the relation between India and China is concerned. How do you expect, I mean, when both the nations are talking to take the spirit of the Wuhan summit further, at the backdrop when what happened recently at UNGA and after especially the abrogation of Article 370, how do you see this visit?
Anurag, I would also like, just the first thing I like to point out is that the Wuhan spirit that everybody is talking about, I don't think Wuhan actually reset India-China ties. It was an exercise that for the time being diffused tensions, but it did not reset the ties. And I think even this meeting, we are expecting too much, but if you ask me, I don't expect a lot from this meeting, because this meeting is kind of, just a show off that everything is good, all is well, that India and China are still talking, we are on talking terms. Please, we should not look at this meeting in isolation. We should also look at this meeting of how the events have happened before it. Look at the way China has actually criticized India when Article 370 was abrogated from Kashmir. And also you have to look at that Wang Yi's visit was due in September in India, but that visit never happened. And even this visit was announced last minute, even though everybody knew.
In fact, I'm stopping you, Namrata.
Yes.
I mean, probably this is the reason that many people are a little surprised that what happened, let's say, within weeks, that China is sounding little different. China is somehow telling Pakistan to solve the Kashmir issue bilaterally. In accordance to the bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan, that was termed as a jolt to the Pakistani establishment. Now, if the China is coming and saying that India should learn from the China-enabled manufacturing success, so these are the different tunes that China is sending at the moment. What has changed within weeks?
Nothing has changed. First, they are, just before this, the statement that has come that India and Pakistan should settle it bilaterally. This, like I said in the previous, when we talked, that this has been China's official stance since 1989. Yeah. Nothing has changed. This is an official stance. But don't look at this stance in isolation again. Look at what China is doing in South Asia. Or look how, it's dealing with Pakistan. So right after Article 370 happened, Wang Yi actually visited Pakistan. And he is the one who raised this issue twice in the UN Assembly. Okay, and they have, look at the Chinese media, they have criticized India. The only thing that, just that they are saying, instead, the only difference is that they are not mentioning the UN, that India should solve it according to the UN resolutions. That is the only change. So there is no other change. And the dropping of UN resolution is only to give this visit a successful spin. I think Professor Muminchan also pointed it out, that this is how Chinese media works. That before an event, they will try to show that everything is good and the visit was very successful.
Okay, so what could be the takeaways from this spectacle, this informal summit?
I think we should not have any informal summits. We should have a proper formal summit when everybody knows what's being talked about, and after the meeting, there are proper takeaways that this was discussed and this is where India-China relations is going. We have absolutely no data as to what is being discussed between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. So for me, I would always say, let's have formal talks rather than these informal summits.
So I mean, this could be the optical extravaganza between the two nations, and especially when the two leaders would shake hand, would sit for the tea, and would probably visit the local heritage sites, and nothing concrete will come out from this visit. You're of the opinion?
Yes, because look at all the issues that we have. I mean, forget about the border issues. Let's forget about Pakistan. Even if we forget about CPEC, look at the economic, relations between India and China. We have almost like a trade deficit of almost $58 billion. I mean, look at the trade deficit, and it's only $8 billion that China has invested in India. So look at this data. I mean, yes, okay, let's not talk about the border issue. It cannot be resolved so quickly. But what about the trade deficit? And what about Indian companies still facing a lot of problems when they want to enter the Chinese market? Look at what China has done to NBA and to the Marriott hotels. They had to toe in line with the Chinese political system. So,
okay. I mean, so in totality, we can say, as you probably rightly summed up, that there should not be informal meeting, because that might be optical extravaganza, or let's say the good optics, probably the good diplomacy as well, to show the word that the both nations are talking to take the spirit further. But nothing concrete would come out. But this is happening. Much awaited spectacle has begun today when the two leaders decided to meet at Mamalpuram, which is 50 kilometers away from Chennai. And approximately 2,000 students of a school in Chennai, capital of the Indian state, Tamil Nadu, formed the name of President Xi next to big yellow words, hearty welcome painted on the ground, welcome him to India. So optics are good. The meeting in Chennai will set probably, as some experts are also believing, the tone for the next stage of the development. But will this meeting somehow take the things further in real terms would be watched very closely. Thank you very much, Namrata, for joining me. That's all we have in this edition of Public Forum. Thank you very much for watching.